you. So today we can directly start with the formation of the fruit. So until yesterday we had looked at the formation of the seed and complete embryo as such. That is what is the seed part. So today we will start with this formation of the fruit or the fruit development. Now again some of the basic information might get repeated here, but just for the sake of continuation of that story, we will talk about it. So the fertilization actually provides the stimulus to the ovules to mature into the seed, because obviously that is one of the most important requirement of the continuation of the generation, and that is why the seed has to get formed, and to form the seed the fertilization has to happen. So that is a kind of stimulus for maturation into the seed, and of course later ovary into the fruit. So seeds that is formed within the ovary and like from the ovules, and the ovary as such turn into the fruit. So whatever that bilocular or multilocular ovaries are there inside a particular flowering plant, the typical type of fruit will also be developed subsequently, depending on what type of ovary was present at the start during the flower gamete formation. So these two formation they occur simultaneously. That is the ovary turning into the fruit and ovule turning into the seed. Once that fertilization has happened, both of these process, that is seed formation and the fruit formation, they happen simultaneously, because obviously the parts where the seeds are getting from, that is almost at the core of the fruit, and parts where the fruit is getting from, that is almost on the outside this ovule, that is in the whole ovary. So obviously they can form simultaneously. All parts of the flower except ovary they wither away. Now that you know it very well that the sepals or the petals, sometimes sepals they do stay with the fruit, but that's again a rare exception. But most of the cases, all the other parts of the flower they will just disappear. The ovary begins to enlarge with the development of the seed and changes into the fruit. Now, like obviously the endosperm part or the fleshy part of the fruit, they comes from it comes from the different layers, and that is actually developed from the pericarp. So pericarp is actually also called in common language as a fruit wall, which develops from the wall of the ovary, that is just outside the ovule or the lobules of the uh, eggs or the ovules in the flower. Now there are three sub layers of the pericarp, that is epicarp, that is the outermost layer. Epi again means outer, so epicarp is the outermost layer and it forms the peel of the fruit. Then mesocarp, which is usually the middle layer, and forms the fleshy edible portion of the fruit. Endocarp, that is the innermost layer, and it's the inner rough portion where the seed is uh, accommodated. That is the this endocarp is the one which is holding the seed of that particular fruit uh, inside it. So just as an example, we all know how mango looks like. So that is the epicarp on the outside, mesocarp is that pulpy or fleshy part. This is the actual seed at the inner core, and around the seed there is this endocarp. So that is how the development occur. The pericarp of the fruit might be fleshy, as in guava or mango that we know of, or might be dry, as in mustard and walnut. So, not necessarily it always has to be fleshy, or it always has to be bigger, or there is a certain, like the guava has all the fleshy pulp, and the seeds are just scattered around, not scattered, but they are kind of at the center, but there is quite a lot of pulp around it. With respect to mango, there is one solid seed, and the fleshy pulp is around it. So depending on what type of fruit it is, the pericarp will behave accordingly, and there might be dry pericarp, like in case of mustard and walnuts, and these almost looks like as if they are the only seed but not the fruit, because their pericarp is not really visible in the fruit stage, so we consider them as seeds only, because again the pericarp is very thin and it is dried out. So that is the in general formation of the fruit. Now, with respect to the types of fruits, there are again various types of the fruits. I don't know if we should go into these things, but yeah, I guess I should, because it's part of the syllabus. So, okay, let me just go through it. So, based on the number of ovaries and the number of flowers involved in the fruit formation, fruits are classified into different groups. Majorly, there are three groups, that is simple fruits, aggregate fruits, and the composite fruits. So that is the uh, three main types of the fruits. In simple fruits, what you have is like obviously the structure would be relatively simpler compared to the others. So these fruits they have developed from the single matured ovary in a single flower. That is, for example, your apple, banana, cherry, pear, or plum, tomato. These are few examples. Tomato is, I'm sure everyone would have seen flower as well as the fruit. So one flower, one fruit. So that is kind of the definition of the simple fruit. The simple fruits, they are again sub-classified into several categories. They are drupes. That is, these are known as stone fruits, and like because they contain a very hard seed inside, like inside the fruit itself. So that is why they are called so. The example is again plum, the cherry, and the peach. Again, you are very much aware of these fruits, so you would know what category this is. Then berries, again, berries, of course, you know, these are the types of the fruit that have single seed and in the center, and they are very juicy. Again, grapes and the blueberries are the example. The homes, or we don't call it, that s sound is little subtle here. So such fruits they bloom from the trees, and these fruits they have the core of several small seeds. This is something like one huge fruit having a lot of seeds at the core. An example is again apple and papaya. Again, they are surrounded by tough membrane. Tough as in not necessarily really hard membrane. Tough is tough enough to protect the inner content. So that is the idea. These are the examples of this type of fruits. And then the fourth one is the Hesperidium, or also called as pepos. These are slightly similar to berries and includes the fruits such as watermelon and citrus. Now, in case of berries, they grow in bunches, right? These ones they are individual fruits, but they have structure similar to berries. So that is why they are. But because they are like relatively like structurally quite different than berries, so that's why there is a separate category. So these are the general types of the simple fruits. In terms of aggregate fruits, these fruits they develop from number of matured ovaries formed in the single flower, right? Like one flower having many ovaries. In that case, there will be aggregate fruits, and individual ovaries they are called as fruitlets. That is, each ovary will develop into separate fruit, but they might be still together. And the example is all these blackberry, raspberry, and strawberry. Like it looks like one, like strawberry for sure you are very much aware. Individually there are seeds inside, like in those small round like structures on the strawberry, and they are called as fruitlets, and the whole fruit is an example of aggregate fruits. I hope this is not so complicated to understand, so I'm going relatively faster here. uh, then the composite fruits, these fruits they develop from complete inflorescence. Complete inflorescence as in, like you are aware of racemose or what is the other type of the inflorescence? I forgot. Okay, whatever it is, I can't recollect the name as of now. So when the inflorescence, that is a bunch of flowers, the whole set of flowers, they will develop into a fruit type, and they are also called as multiple fruits. And the examples or the subtypes of these are the Sorosis and Syconus. In Sorosis, these are found in your jackfruit and pineapple specifically, and mulberries. I don't know if you have seen or tasted mulberries, so I'm not talking about it. But the jackfruit and pineapple, surely you had seen it, so it's easier to visualize what this Sorosis type is. They develop from different types of inflorescence. For example, like spikes or the spadix, these spikes that you can see on the pineapple and jackfruits, that is a typical type of composite or multiple fruits. And Syconus develop from the Hypanthodium. This is a specific structure which grows from the main shoot, and that develops into the fruit. That is the uh, Syconus. Why I haven't mentioned the example here? Oh, I guess yeah, it will come forward. So these are the three major types. I'm not going to talk about the biological significance of the fruit. That means where the fruits are being utilized and so on. That you can do it on your own. Okay, yeah. Here is the link that I have linked with different types of inflorescence and what kind of fruits are being formed later. So that link you can check it anytime later you want. Now, there are certain other types of fruits, based on differences, like we have different ways of classifying fruits, and one was like simple, aggregate, and composite. The other one is eucarp and pseudocarp, that is a true fruit and a false fruit. So, a true fruit or eucarp is one that develops from the single superior ovary of a single flower and with no other floral parts outside the ovary. So, that is just the fruit, and all the floral parts they have withered away. So, that is the true fruit, and the examples are mango, coconut, and pea, and so on, right? In case of the pseudocarps, they are also called as false fruit or spurious fruit. They develop from the inferior ovary. Now, if you remember what was superior ovary and inferior ovary, superior ovary was that one where the floral parts or the attachment of the sorry, the point of attachment for the floral parts and the ovary is below the ovary. And when the ovary is below all the floral parts, that was inferior ovary in short. So when the fruit is developed from this inferior ovary and the other floral parts, they also take part in the formation of the fruit. In this case, the floral parts are already gone. In this case, they take part in the formation of the fruit, and that is why it looks like pseudo carp. That is the pseudo or the false fruit. All aggregates and the multiple fruits, they are false fruit. So all the previous types that we had seen, whatever aggregate or multiple fruits, they come under the pseudocarp. So for example, apple, strawberry, fig, and pear, these are all false fruit, as their edible part is mainly the fleshy thalamus. Brinjal, for example, which is the vegetable, or we also call it eggplant sometimes, is a false fruit as it persists. It has the persistent calyx, and you know that brinjal has that calyx part around its fruit. So that is also a false fruit. So in general, if you like pomegranate for example, there also if you have seen the original fruit, at the one end or at the center of that sphere of pomegranate, you will see a kind of calyx like structure, and it actually looks like a flower, so like a dried flower. So that is also a false fruit. Again, the example is given here in terms of what is a true fruit and false fruit, that you can have a look at. So I will not go into that part. Okay. Uh, okay, any question until here in the types of fruits or the formation of the fruit? Okay, if not, then we will move forward with respect to, there are these small topics at the end of the chapter which we have to cover. That is the role of pollination in fruit development. So, of course, you know why the pollination is required for the fruit to be developed. So, pollination is most important process for fertilization to happen of the ovule with the male gametes, that is the anther part, and then ultimately formation of the seed and development of the fruit, and subsequently the uh, uh, process of complete fruit development. And then prevention of ovary abscission, that is abscission is like kind of cutting off. I hope you are familiar with this word. So that is the to avoid the ovary to wither away or to get detached from the plant and fall off the mature ovary because of the several reasons. Again, pollination ensures that this transfer of pollen to stigma of the gynoecium, that is the basic process of like post pollination or pre-fertilization. Then proteins and other components present in the wall of the pollen grains help recognition of the pollen as the self and stimulate the secretion of auxin. If you remember, we were looking at that pollen pistil interaction, and there we had seen the secretion of the chemicals where the pollen tube keeps on growing based on the secretion of the chemicals, or especially these auxins from the female gamete, and that is what it is talking about. The auxins in general stimulate the initial growth of ovary from the fruit. Auxin is one of the chemical which is also called as plant hormones, and that stimulate the initial growth of the ovary from the to form the fruit. Now, just to give you a quick glance of what usually people do outside. So, whenever they have a farm for fruits, they usually spray auxins, like how they spray fertilizers and pesticides and so on sometimes, or they put it through water to all the plants. Auxins are also given to the plants like this so that the uh, earlier growth of the ovary is stimulated, so that the fruit bearing of the plant happens quite early. So that is the function of the auxins, and these are widely used these days, like as a chemical farming. So pollination also ensures the union of male and female gamete and seed growth. So sorry, these whole points what it mentions is why, what is the role of pollination in the fruit development. So if that is a kind of question being asked, you need to mention this all the points which happens during the pollination phases, like we had looked at pre-fertilization events. So during the pollination, these are all the events that happen. Now, again, there are certain terms which are being used in whole of this fruit development or in general farming and so on, that I have mentioned at the bottom. So, anthesis is actually the period from flowering to the fruit setting. So, from as soon as the flowers they start appearing till the fruit is about to get like fruit is formed kind of, but it is about to get ripened and so on. So that is the seed formation has not started yet. So until that period, it is called as anthesis. Then flower thinning. Now flower thinning is one of the major practice that is being used. Like in some cases, what happens is one branch of the plant has quite a lot of flower, and the other branch does not have a lot of flower. So the branch which does not have lot of flower has higher chance that most of the fruits from that branch which has less flower will develop into better fruits. And the reason being, the nutrition being provided to each branch is kind of equal, and if there are comparatively less number of fruits, the nutrition whatever goes into those fruits with less flower will be obviously better than the branch which has lot of flower. And that is when some of the flowers they are plucked, or they are dropped naturally by the plants, or they are plucked by the artificial means. Sometimes the farmers they do that. That process is called as flower thinning. It's like removing some of the flowers which are like quite a lot. Then dune drop, again this concept we know, like we have seen it. There is a dropping of immature fruits, like especially mango trees we had seen, or even the custard apple trees we had seen. They drop their immature fruits because they are no more useful, and there is no point for the plant to let them grow on itself because they are immature. Could be because of the endosperm development has not happened. It is same thing like in case of human also. There are sometimes these premature babies, or premature is still they are well developed, like they can get delivery. But if there is some malformation during the process of embryonic development, that is what is case of dune drop in the plants. And then in terms of auxins, they prevent the flower thinning, and they also prevent the dune drop. So this is one of the other reason that why auxins are also being utilized by the farmers. They just don't care about the quality of the fruit, so they want more flowers and ultimately dune drop to be reduced, so they can develop into more fruit. And that is why the farmers they also use the auxin. Any questions here? Okay. Then obviously the last part of the fruit development, that is ripening part. Uh, that is the as soon as the growth of the ovary wall due to the cell division. So all the processes they are part of cell division, like starting from the embryo to seed formation to fruit formation. Even whether it's uh, pericarp, or whether it's a pulpy like flesh inside, or whether it's a seed which is developed within the fruit. All of these they are the part, they happen due to the cell division inside the fruit. So that whole development happens due to the cell division and cell enlargement. And after the fruit is completely development, both of these processes they stop, and the fruit is matured and followed by the fruit ripening. So after the fruit is completely developed, the cell division and the cell enlargement stops, the fruit is said to be completely mature, and from that point the ripening starts. So like if you have ever noticed, if you take a mango which is not completely developed, and if you try to ripen it, like after taking it out from the plant, it does not ripen the same way like the artificial ripening, or after the fruit is completely developed and then you take it out. So in that is what this statement means. Now, this ripening is also characterized by conversion of starch into sugar. You know, there is a lot of starch in the plant cells, as in the form of grain, or even in the synthesis or the metabolic processes of the plant cell. There is conversion of the starch into sugar. Now, sugar, most of the times it is fructose, right? Sometimes there are other types of sugar also based on what type of fruit it is, but majorly it is fructose in most variety of the fruits. And the reduction in the concentration of the acid, and that sourness of the fruit when it is not ripe or when it is raw, is because there is the presence of acids, and these acids does not mean literally the chemicals that we find in the laboratory. These are the edible acids like tartaric acid and like citric acid and so on. So these will get reduced, the concentration of the acids, the starch will convert into sugar, and production of the esters, like whatever these acids are there, they will get converted into esters, and esters are relatively like you can say non-sour part of the fruit. And that is just what is happening with respect to the chemical part. The breakdown of the chlorophyll leads to changes in color and texture, and so whatever chlorophyll was present in the earlier fruit or during that fruit development part, that will break down, it will form into certain color, and that is why you see different colors in the fruits. That is just because of the what is the breakdown product of the chlorophyll. Now chlorophyll is relatively a very big molecule. It can metabolize in different ways, and so there will be of course different color combinations available for the fruit. Again, that also leads to different texture, taste, and flavor of the fruit. That is all because of the chemical changes that happens inside the plant, or metabolic changes that happens inside the fruit as such. Uh, any question here? I assume this was again easier to uh, grasp. Okay, so I will move forward. There are only 4 more slides. We should be able to finish this today because this part we had already seen. If you remember parthenocarpy, we had seen it in the earlier chapter, but just again to revise this part in the context of the sexual reproduction in the flowering plant. So in some of the plants, the fruits they are formed without fertilization, and this particular phenomena is called as parthenocarpy. Like there is no fertilization happening, so there is obviously no what you say female gamete and male gamete fusion. Mostly female gamete, that is the ovary style stigma. Not even style stigma is required there, but majorly ovary, that part develop into the fruit as such. And such fruits, they are either seedless or they contain a very non-viable seeds. That means their seeds they are not really viable in terms of you cannot regrow them from the seeds that whatever is present in those plant. If you have ever seen banana, rather banana seeds, I don't know if you have noticed those small black kind of at the center, that pipe like structure at the core, there are, and around that center there are certain small fine particle, and they are actually the banana seeds. But again, like it is said, these are mostly non-viable seeds, and they are produced due to either absence of pollination, or can be failure of fertilization, or can be the zygotic sterility. Zygotic sterility means there is a kind of fertilization happening, but the zygote that is formed, it is not able to develop into a mature adult, right? So that is what sterility refers to. In case of absence of pollination, now sorry, before I go back to the examples, zygote formation, you might wonder that we talked about parthenocarpy which is without fertilization, and then we are giving an example of zygote formation in the same category. So when we are talking about this fertilization process, this has to lead to a mature and adult seeds later, and if that is not happening, uh, then it is called as parthenocarpy. Yeah, so that is why zygote is being formed and it is not like functional, so it still remains in the parthenocarpy category. So the examples with respect to absence of pollination, that is banana, pineapple, and citrus, there is no pollination that happens. Though you might see insects crawling around these plants and so on, or around the fruits, but still that pollination does not happen. So there is like no seed formation as such. In citrus, you might see the seeds, but again, they are not the functional seeds; they are non-functional seeds. Failure of fertilization, again the fertilization like there will be male and female gametes, but that fertilization process is not happening like the examples of orchids. The zygotic sterility, like I mentioned, the zygote is formed, but that is not functional. That it can be due to the abortion of the embryos, that is literally like dropping of the embryos from the ovary itself. The example is peaches, cherries, and grapes. So their seeds are also non-viable. Uh, Natural parthenocarpy is found in oranges, cucumber, and seedless grapes. So that is the natural mode of parthenocarpy. In some of the cases, just to increase the yield, some people have developed this variety, which falls under artificial parthenocarpy, and obviously seed quality, sorry, the fruit quality is not so great with artificial uh, uh, this artificial process, but still the production is increased to some extent, and that is why people do such experiments. But in natural parthenocarpy, that does exist in these fruits. Now parthenocarpy can be induced, like again artificially induced, by low amount of auxins and gibberellins. Like I mentioned, auxin is one of the plant hormone. Similarly, gibberellin is another plant hormone. Again, majorly gibberellins, they are used for what we call for the ripening of the fruit and development of the fruit, like auxins. Like auxins, they were majorly involved in the enlargement and so on. So there is a process which is called as dipping in the grape farm, which literally means there is a kind of a bowl or a bucket which is filled with gibberellin, and they dip that whole grape bunch into this bucket or a bowl, and that is how they give gibberellins individually and not to the whole plant, so that only fruit is using that gibberellin and developing into what you say, either a very sweet one and bigger in size and seedless and so on, and thin covering outside the fruit. So uh, these are the ways people use these hormones, especially the plant hormones, to induce the parthenocarpy, or even to increase the fruit production and so on. So that is parthenocarpy. Similarly, there is another topic which is called as apomixis. Now, apo means away, away from something, and mixis is actually the act of mixing. Yeah, that is literally literal meaning of the word. So it refers to the formation of the new individuals or seeds with embryo growing directly from the diploid cells of the new cell. So if you remember that polar uh, central polar nucleus, uh, those cells of the nucellus, or even from the integuments, that will develop into the new individuals. New individuals, this is referring to either a new plant or a new fruit or a new seed. And that is because the embryo is growing directly from these cells of the nucellus or the integuments, and not from the fertilized embryo always. So that is the exception. Again, something like parthenocarpy, where the fertilization is not required, but still the fruit development happens. So that is what is apomixis. Again, with respect to mango and oranges, this can happen when the diploid egg or some other gametophytic cell, they are involved, then the example there is apple. So if the fruit is getting developed from the diploid cells of the nucellus or the integuments, the examples are mango and orange, and that same thing which is developed from the egg cell. Now this is again the uh, can be fertilized in some cases, but if it is non-fertilized, then it becomes the apomixis example. Yeah. Again, like I said, this is the kind of parthenocarpy, but just the similar process to parthenocarpy. And the example here with respect to the egg, the fruit developing from the diploid egg directly, that is apple. Now, new plant from a seed without fertilization, like again the mention is without fertilization here, or the normal sexual reproduction. That is where the apomixis comes into picture, and so it is not literally different from what we have seen in Parthenocarpy. They can be considered as parallel processes that happens inside the plant. So
So
yes,
this is an example of asexual reproduction, right?
um, we can't say it's as asexual reproduction because in asexual
Sir,
reproduction,
I can't hear you. One second.
okay, can you hear me now? Hello, Pratham, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you now.
Okay, so this is not actually a type of asexual reproduction because here the gamete formation is happening normally, and it's only some of the fruits of the same plant they undergo this process of apomixis or parthenocarpy. And also because there is a complete what you say gametes are being present in the plant or the fruit, we may not call it asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction usually refers to that budding and fission and those type, like we had seen those types of reproduction earlier. So
Sir, but like from the new cellus on and the integuments, the cells are like exactly diploid, right? Like, I mean, the cells are forming from just one parent, right?
yeah, that is true, but then still the embryo is there. Not the embryo, what you say, the gametes are still there with the plant. In case of asexual reproduction, there may not be any gamete formation at all.
Uh,
That is the difference. In sexual reproduction, sorry, in asexual reproduction, gamete formation is not the required process.
Sir, but this is something uh, mitosis, right? I mean,
Yeah, you can say it's similar to asexual reproduction.
so of course it can't be sexual, right? So
Yeah, correct.
it's some other category then.
Yeah. So that is why I said it can be considered as similar to asexual reproduction, but there are still, like for example, in this case where the diploid egg is forming the fruit, now you can't call it asexual reproduction because it's a properly developed female gamete. And from that,
Sir, but in asexual reproduction also, the offsprings that are born, they are also diploid, right?
yeah, because they are developing from any cell, right? Means like any cell in the sense, uh, uh, like they, like of course they are specific cells, but then from that bunch of specific cells which gives rise to new individual, they have that ability. Here the fruit is meant to form after the fertilization, but in some of the cases, the obviously now this has to go something back to the genetics part, like the all of the information that is required for the development of the fruit is present in that genetic code. Now in the absence of what you say male gamete, there will be formation of the fruit, and that is a kind of adaptation process. It is not as such the natural course of the flowering plants.
Sir, but can't one organism have many ways of reproduction? So some might be preferred, some might not be preferred, but it can still have many ways, right? So isn't it possible that the plant prefers sexual reproduction, but if it can't, it makes do with asexual?
That is right. Plant can have many ways of reproduction apart from sexual. That is true. But then this particular fruit formation, we cannot say it. I mean, that's what I feel, that we cannot say it. It will be asexual reproduction because there is a complete gamete formation there.
So like by complete gamete formation, like what exactly do you mean by that? Like
It's a mature.
offspring has the offspring has like a diploid like it's diploid, the zygote.
Right. So, now there is a difference. When the sexual reproduction process has occurred, it creates a viable offspring. Viable offspring means it can generate into new generation, right? With Parthenocarpian apomixis, it may not generate the new generation. Are you getting
Uh,
the difference there? If the
so
fruit is being formed, fruit will be the end of that generation.
but in apomixis it will not.
That is what, again, there I am not very sure, but I guess it cannot form the new generation. Though the
So
seeds and everything will get formed, but the fertilized embryo is the only is the only way to create a viable seed.
but a seed that grows into a plant is a viable seed, right? Because the plant can then have sexual or like apomixis with another plant or itself.
Not really, Pratham. Not
So
all
but
these seeds that grows inside a fruit, they are viable.
no, I mean I was talking about the apomixis category.
Yeah, that is what I am talking about. So let's say a particular apple tree or particular mango tree, it has gone through a certain extent of sexual reproduction, and the fruits are developed, and some of the uh, fruits, they are developed through this parthenocarpy or apomixis pathway, right?
Oh, yes.
Because there the pollination has not happened, or fertilization has not happened, or like any other reason which is being mentioned here. Now in that case, those seeds, if you go and plant, may not generate the new plant at all, because the embryo generation there is only from one gamete. Though these are diploid cells, these diploid cells, they are both from the female. I don't know if you are getting that point, because diploid does not necessarily mean one is from male and one is from female. Diploid can be both male, and that is also called diploid if it is from both females, the gametes or the chromosomes or the genetic makeup. It can also be called diploid. It's like both
So
female or both from male, and they
but
do not lead to the viable next generation.
but that's the difference, right? Like from parthenocarpy, it won't lead to another generation, but from apomixis, it will, right?
I am not sure then about it. I must check a little more. But like as of now, what I know of is both of these, they need not, rather they do not generate into the new generation. That is what I know. But I'll check about this. Again, I don't want to give false.
So like here,
So I
like
checked the internet. Apomixis seeds can germinate and they can grow into a plant, but that will be a clone of the mother plant, and
That,
they can sexually reproduce.
so now if you think of that part, see, that is what I was thinking of. Let's say there is this diploid egg which has only female gametes, and let's say this fruit is developing into a new plant. Then will it be only generating the female flowers, or will it also generate the male flower? Because if it has to generate male flower, how is the question? And if it is only generating female flowers, then the cross pollination can happen and that process can continue. That is one chance, and that is when I said, like, let me stop myself. I'm not too sure about this process, what exactly happened to this diploid egg afterwards. But okay, like I will check about this later. I am not too sure about this particular thing.
Oh,
Or if you find out, you can let me know as well. I'm okay with that. Yeah, Pratham, you want to say something?
no, Alyssa, like I didn't catch the last point that you said.
No, I just said I'm not too sure of
No,
these.
no, before that, like the male and the female part, like you said something about that, right?
What did I say? Oh yeah, what I said is, if this diploid egg, let's say it is giving rise to the seed and it can grow into a new plant, then whether that plant has only female flowers, or if it has any male flower, how are they generating? Where is that male gamete is coming to this female flower? Because of both these cells or both these gametes are from the diploid egg.
Yes.
So
Oh,
that is my question, and that is when I don't know how does it happen, if at all it happens into a completely normal plant.
so,
I
but if it's an exact copy of the previous plant, and if the previous plant had both male and female, then if it's an exact copy, then it also should.
That is right. What you are saying is completely right. But here they are clearly mentioning the diploid egg, and they are not mentioning the fertilized egg. When it is diploid egg, that means both the copies of the gametes that is present in this cell, they are from the female, right? If
Yes.
it is fertilized egg, that means one is male and one is female. So if it is both female, how can it lead to the normal course of action in terms of growth? That is my question. And that is when I said, how will it generate into the viable seed? So that is where I am stuck at. Are you getting what I said?
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So maybe we need to look into that specific information. Uh, so maybe we all read around it and we will come back tomorrow and no tomorrow or whenever next classes, and we'll talk about it further. But as of now, we leave it at that it does not generate into viable seed. If at all, we will change that statement, or rather, I will change that statement later. Okay, so where were we? So the new plant from a seed without fertilization or normal sexual reproduction. Uh, okay, this is where the complicated statement is coming from. Okay, I skip that part. So the plant produced is a clone of the female parent plant. Now here also, again, I'm not sure what exactly is the meaning, but now after the discussion I'm not sure of the meaning. But as of now, what I was aware of was that it only generates the female gametes even in the next generation of plant, and that may or may not continue into further generation. So during sexual reproduction, the development steps occurs inside the ovule and produce the female gamete and so on, and then gives rise to the embryo and endosperm structure. But in this, apomixis is very common in higher plants, specifically the higher plants as in those which grows into bigger trees-like structure, especially these Gramineae family and Rosaceae family. Now, Rosaceae family, it does not literally corresponds to the rose flower, but there are several uh, more trees. Again, you can go back to your biological classification and check which trees. But Gramineae and Rosaceae, these are the common families that we see around us as our desi trees. And again, of course, this Compositae and Rutaceae, again, the same type of example. So, major of these cereals and the maize category or even the wheat category, they show the apomixis type of fertilizer, not fertilization, apomixis type of growth of the fruit formation. So again, in this case, because the nucellus or the integuments, they gives rise to the seeds, and not necessarily the fertilization has to happen. That is why these examples are quite common. But apart from this, the other higher trees, they also show the similar. So if you have noticed, there are so many trees around us, especially the huge trees. uh, like fig. Fig is one common example. Not all the fig. No, I'm not talking about the common fig, but there are several varieties of the fig. For example, even banyan tree. Banyan tree also has that small red color fruit. But most of the times, if you let that fruit like try to sow it in the soil, it does not grow into a plant. And again, that is one of, I feel that is one of the reason why it does not happen is either this apomixis or parthenocarpy kind of uh, reasons. Okay. uh, then there are these two types. Okay, how much time do I have? Okay, we have, I guess it will overlap. Let's see. So, or let's do one thing. We will stop here. We will come back with information in the next class. We will finish these 3 slides, whatever is left from this chapter. So we also get to talk about whatever we were stuck at, rather I was stuck at. And then we will continue and we will start the next chapter in the next class itself. But as of now, it's 5 minutes early. I'm sure we will not finish these 3 slides in next 5 minutes. So let's stop here. Okay.